Hello and welcome to RingTalk Series 3, Episode 13. We're joined once again by Josh Goodwin and Steve Goodwin, and we've got a special guest today, two-time World Champion Hannah Rankin. Hannah, welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be down here.
How are you? I know the train delay got you here, but how are you first of all?
I'm good. I made it. I didn't get squashed in the mad rush for the train, and I actually managed to get a seat, so I was feeling pretty privileged. So
I don't suppose there'd be many people want to fight you for the seat, so I think you'd probably been all right. Steve and Josh, how are you?
All good, mate. All good. Yep, same as.
All good, same as. We've got quite a lot to get through. We've got a few things to review and preview. But I know, as we talked about last week, you've got a new small hall section, Steve, that you want to outrun. Let's start with that. So bring us up to date what's happening around the country for small hall.
Okay, so covering last week's small hall, what is becoming a bit more prevalent is the journeyman winning, because I think they realise they can win fights and still get work the following week. As Poochie knows, although it stopped in the end, he got too greedy. But just going back on last week, Steve Wood had a show in Bolton on Saturday, and for me the standout was a 19-year-old kid called Jake Abrol who stopped Fons Alexander in a round.
Wow.
That kid must be good. I haven't seen the fight, but a 19-year-old boy to stop Fons Alexander in a round, that must be quite exceptional.
Fons is tough as a coffin nail.
He's very durable as well.
Really
He's great.
And on the same show, a Carl Grease fighter, Carl Sampson, won his 4th out of 6 away fights at super lightweight. Now, the phone must surely stop ringing for him, or he's going to have some pretty hard fights. But yeah, winning 4 out of 6 away from home. I did speak to Richard Farnham, and he said that for Poochie, the phone stopped ringing. Maybe for Carl, super lightweight, there's quite a few options there, so he may well see his phone dry up. But, good on them going to get their wins, The day before, there was a Mo Price show at York Hall.
Yep.
Harry Matthews went and won. He went and beat an undefeated fighter. So it's another journeyman going and getting his win. But there was no big fights on there. The most interesting fight was probably Adrian Redman, super middle. He moved to 8-0, but he got dropped by the Glenn Banks fighter Chris Wood in the last round. So Adrian Redman moves towards titles, but probably not the most ideal preparation for a title getting dropped.
Do you think that'll happen more into the new year? Do you think we'll see more of these journeymen coming for wins? Do you think we're going to see more of this continue?
For sure.
Or do you think it's a Christmas bonanza and people are just going for it because it's nearly Christmas?
No, I think they don't. In the old days, there were so many journeymen, they had to lose to win, to get work. But now it's different, and I think a lot of the journeymen know that they can go win now and again. I mean, the previous Monday, Cole Pavey, 0-5, went and beat Angelo Antonio, who's now 1-1-1. And he's obviously ticket selling days are probably over, but another win for the away fighters. So it's very, very, very. It's very, very, very difficult for these home fighters. So you've really got to know who you're matching, how ambitious they are, and try your best to protect. But yeah, we'll see how many pull it off this week. Now this week, not too many small hall shows. Steve Wood, who's one of the busiest promoters, is again promoting. No big fights, but. The interesting thing for us is we've got Robbie Chapman and Michael Mooney at the moment in the away corners.
Yeah.
It's Michael Mooney's 100th fight this weekend.
What an achievement that is. 100 fights is incredible. 100 fights and not being in a coma is just an amazing achievement.
And so for Michael, that's a big moment for him. His dad's going to take him up there. It's a really big night for Michael, doing 100 fights, and he's a really nice guy, real good pleasure to deal with. So both Michael and Robbie are on that card. Steffi Ball stages a fight in Rotherham this Sunday. It's headlined by an English flyweight title fight between Conor Kelsall 7-0 and Ben Norman 6-1. You're going to get English title fights at that weight for 6-7 fighters. They're not really that, the English title is a bit, in most divisions you wouldn't be fighting for an English title in 7 fights, but full credit for putting on a good top of the bill in December, because it's hard with the World Cup. And Matt Jones promotes at Gateshead again on a Sunday, probably because they didn't want to clash with potential World Cup
Potentially
nights.
England, yeah.
And their best fight is a 10-round super middle clash between Matt McCallum and Boris Crichton. But all in all, these promoters that are putting shows on in December, full credit to them because they're braver than we are. I mean, we decided this. It's hard enough to break even in November, let alone try and do it when everybody's all everybody's going to be concerned about is England France.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it, for sure, for putting shows on any time, but especially in December. Just coming back to the journeyman thing was interesting, and Hannah, for you, so different. Obviously, female boxing at the moment doesn't really have that many.
No.
Do you think that will change in the future as there's more? Because obviously we're seeing more females turn pro now. The female boxing is on the rise and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Do you think there'll be a point when we'll have so-called journey women?
I think there's going to be more women obviously there are more women getting involved in the sport, and there will be more girls coming through as journeywomen, but I actually applaud the journeymen getting their wins because, if you go to America or you watch any of the American shows, the guys come in and it's a good test, and it's not seen as the end of the world if you get dropped in a round by someone who's got a losing record, or who's got a record of 21 and 12 or something, or 12 and 21. That's right, the other way around. Mm-hmm. That's not seen as a bad thing because it's a learning escapade for you, really. If you're a prospect and you want to grow as a fighter, getting pushed in the ring is important. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I like about the female game is that everyone's coming in to do well. For example, you look at Vida Mascanet, right? She was definitely a journeywoman, seen as a journeywoman. She came in, she took Tash Jones a distance and then, went through and, she's having kind of like a resurgence and she's seeing some, positivity in her performances and she's getting better and better. So it's a hard night's work if you have her in the ring. She's going to try and take the win if she can. And I think that's really good for the women's game because it's keeping all of us honest when we're in there. You got to think that they're going to come in, they're not going to try and get the win. They're always going to come in because you get a few wins in your record, you might get an opportunity at a bigger fight on a bigger show. Something is going to make you some more money. So I quite like it.
And it's something we talk about all the time, Josh, isn't it? We talk all the time about this. This in boxing is probably one of the most things that hamper boxing as a sport itself. We have this absolute obsession with undefeated. As soon as someone loses or get dropped, they're shot, that's it, they're no good, and they make take. I mean, we talk about, obviously, it's just madness. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, it really don't. In any other combat sport, no one actually cares about the undefeated record. At the end of the day, if you lose one fight, you can learn from it plenty of times. I think even if you look back at some of the top people's favourite fighters in the past, you see some people lost 5, 6, 7, 8, but for whatever reason, during the period they're fighting, as soon as they lose at the first time, they're written off straight away, which is crazy.
Is it the Mayweather factor? Do we blame Floyd Mayweather for the
I think that's probably the more of the modern way, definitely. Yeah, it's just people need to get past that.
Absolutely.
We've seen people lose Southern Area title fights that gone on to an English and British. Mm-hmm. Look at Tyler Denny, lost to Linus Udofia. If people had their way, they'd say you should quit, you can't even win the English title. He's gone away, improved a lot.
I was there
won the
for
English
that fight.
title.
His last fight, it was a good performance.
Exactly.
Yeah,
What's that fight?
It's great.
Really good fight.
But if you lost to the O obsessions, people, you'd have retired at that point.
Absolutely. And another thing that we have this obsession in boxing is as soon as someone loses, we change trainer, we change manager, we change short colours, we change there's this massive exodus of stuff we change that's just absolutely... You don't get it in any other sport. You don't have Manchester United lose a game and then all of a sudden the defensive coach is sacked, the goalkeeper's coach is sacked, they change the training ground, and now all of a sudden we got rid of red shirts, we're playing in yellow. It's mental.
Absolutely. I mean, if you take Hannah sitting here, world champion, but had losses on a record. Derek Chisora has carried on for his career. He lost early on, but he still came back and back and back. Yeah. It's nonsense. It's such nonsense. It really is.
I know. And you look at someone like, look back in the past, somebody like Arturo Gatti, for example, right? Fantastic fighter. Mm-hmm. But he everyone turned up to watch him fight. Win, lose or draw, his fights were always exciting. And he's a huge inspiration to me as a fighter because I just think, if you're a fighter, you should want to fight. Mm-hmm. Fundamentally, that is the thing that I think that everyone needs to take on board. If you want to be a boxer, you want to be a fighter, you should want to get in the ring, you should want to compete against the best and try and be the best. Mm-hmm. Fundamentally, that's it. Mm-hmm. But I think so many people are scared to take those opportunities and those chances. I mean, if I hadn't taken the Clarissa Shields fight when the offer was given to me, You know, at the time nobody else wanted it, but I was like, I'll have it because you know she's meant to be the best, and you know I want to see how good I can be. And I lost that fight. I lost on points, but what it did for my career was massive. You know, I boxed in America. It was the first time on like the biggest show that I've ever been on. I had to do a live broadcast on DAZN for the, you know, we had the press conference. It was live. It was broadcast around the world. You know, it was such a huge learning curve. And, you know, to go in and fight somebody like that, you learn so much from a fight like that. And it just built my publicity up. It built everything, and it gave me so many more opportunities further on my career, and taught me a lot that I then took into other fights. So I think fighters should not be afraid to take these opportunities because it can only improve you.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to come back to the Clarissa Shields bit in a minute because I want to ask you about that. One thing I just wanted to touch on when we'll talk about, do we think that this obsession with the O is to do with ticket selling? Do we think that it's a ticket selling issue, whereas if someone loses, it's harder to sell tickets? Do we think it's part of a small hall problem?
Definitely a problem on the small hall. You get the fighters that lose a fight and their ticket sales do dip. So it is a problem more on small hall.
But I think also that's a problem in the fact that the way that people view a loss. You know, you look at social media when people suddenly, you know, you take a loss and suddenly everyone's throwing you away. And this is the weirdest thing about boxing. I can't understand it at all.
Yeah.
You know, in America, you might follow your baseball team or your NFL, whatever. You could be bottom of the league, and
Absolutely.
everyone still turns out to support you because they have that kind of, they want to back you to achieve what you want to achieve. Whereas here in boxing, it's very much like you have a loss, or you're rubbish. You can't possibly ever achieve anything.
No, absolutely.
And I think people are scared to get a loss in their record because of also you need to get sponsorship. You need people to support you, and of course, like, you know, for me being a world champion and still being a former world champion, I still have lots of support and I can get sponsorship through that. But I can see why people would be scared not to, because it's like, you know, you have to sell yourself. And this is the crazy thing about boxing. It's not, you have to have your own promotion. You have to put yourself out on social media, sell tickets. You have to have a personality. You have to be able to speak on interviews. And you also have to box.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the last thing you've got to try and remember.
Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, no, definitely.
I think that's a big part of it.
It's such a strange sport in those situations, and like you say, yeah, you have to do so many things that, you know, a boxer you have to be, and we talk about it all the time, Steve, don't we? You have to be a ticket seller, you have to be your best own promoter. Coming back to the loss thing, the only thing I think as well, and Josh, I want to get your thoughts on this, do we think some of it to do with this loss, this obsession with the loss, is the way boxers handle a loss? So often you see sometimes a boxer has a loss, you see in the lead up to the fight, loads of social media, they lose and then obviously they go missing for a couple of things. I personally quite like it when someone just owns that loss and come up short.
Yeah, I think I think they don't disappear. I think the majority of the time, if people lose on the small hall, a lot of the time they never fight again. I think for me, one of the big causations is the invention of social media and the easy access of BoxRec. If people couldn't Google your name and find out your record, I think people wouldn't mind losses as bad. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's a lot less journeyman about nowadays.
I was just about to say the same thing. Do you think that's the contributing factor to why we have less journeyman nowadays?
Imagine back in the day, you could tell when you're a professional boxer, and you could just tell a little white lie about your record if you really wanted to. But now what they've got to do is Google your name, and the first thing that will come up is your BoxRec record. So I do think I do believe that's had a big impact. Yeah,
it is definitely a factor of it. Just quickly, why it's topical, Hannah, we talked about it. Clarissa Shields, obviously we see her recently with a fight. Is she as good as she portrays and as we've seen?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I think for the last fight, you've got to say she is. You know, she's up there. But I will say that she needed that fight, you know, and she said it herself, you know, that fight with her and Savannah, she needed Savannah as that dance partner for us to really see that next level, that next gear. And it was honestly one of the best fights I've seen. If it doesn't come up for Fight of the Year contender, I will be disappointed, to be honest. But no, she's brilliant. And you know, you can just see, like, whenever I'm working with her, I was obviously out sparring with her recently, and you know, I work really well with her, and I get lots of experience getting in the rounds with her. You know, you learn from each other, doing lots of things, so you can just see she's got that technique that she's obviously honed over years. You know, having those 2 Olympic gold medals obviously helps that. You know, says that, you know, technique's not bad, but you know, she loves teaching as well. And one day I will not be surprised if you see her out there as a coach, because she loves to teach people, work with people. But I think her working with John David Jackson is a fantastic pairing. Those two work really well together. He doesn't like try and tell her too much. He just says, so what do you think about this? Okay, cool. And they have like this very backwards forwards conversation, and she says it's great because we just talk about it in the corner, and I'm chilled, and then I go out and do the next thing.
Yeah.
But she's got a very technical mind.
Do you have a similar setup in your corner? Is it talked about, or does Noel tell you what to do?
I think obviously I've been with Noel since I started out, so I have a very calm corner. Noel's not a Teddy Atlas. He's not going to be shouting at me, giving me like motivational quotes and things like that. That's just not how we work.
We are firemen.
We are not firemen. We are not. But I prefer the calm, quiet corner, and that's just the way that we work. But other people prefer a little bit more,
Sure.
excitement going on in there. And I think sometimes you hear it corners and you hear people giving like a million instructions, and you think, if I was that fighter sitting there, I would take none of that in. Yeah, literally none of it.
we talked about it before as well. One of my bugbears is some of the trainers give too many instructions, and you can see the fighter sits there not a clue what they're supposed to do in to try and work on to the next round. But anyway, there was some boxing on last week. We'll come to more about you in a bit, Hannah, and the things you're doing. We're going to come on to review the fights at the weekend. We'll start with the Wasserman card first of all. Top of the bill, Troy Williamson and Josh Kelly. Troy Williamson was the favourite going into the fight. Steve?
Narrow favourite
was. I know you're our odds man. So we. What do we think? Good performance from Josh Kelly?
Brilliant performance. Josh Kelly showed something that he hasn't really shown before, which was 10-round pace, total control of the fight, made Troy Williamson look very slow
and hurt him multiple times as well.
And hurt him. I thought it was a fantastic performance. But again, Troy Williamson has lost, but Troy Williamson has now got a loss, but he'll still come back. But Josh Kelly was absolutely exceptional.
Yeah, he looked amazing. He looked $1 million in there. It was like one of those fights where I just was like, that's Josh Kelly.
Yeah.
And we just really saw him shine. He looked so good, and he does things which you think shouldn't work, but they do work, and he's just got such class and style about him, and it's just like nobody else could do that but Josh Kelly. And it was just lovely to watch him. I was really happy for him.
With Josh Kelly, did we do a little bit? Was we all guilty of the bit we just criticised people? Did we write Josh Kelly off a little bit because the Avanesian fight? No. Did we all write him off a little bit?
I think most people wrote him off at top level, but I'd say the thing with Josh Kelly, he showed improving the Avanesian fight, that he'd be brilliant for 4 or 5 rounds, but then if somebody turn the light switch off and he'd just go. Even with the Troy Williamson fight, I was just waiting at some point for Troy to get in the fight, and he didn't at all.
No, yeah.
So I don't know whether going up in weights helped him with his energy.
I think it massively, a huge difference, because you can see his body shape's even changed, and like when he's down at welter, he looks absolutely ripped. There's not an ounce of fat on him, but his conditioning was so much better at the higher weight, so maybe it just took less out of his body to be at that weight, and he just felt more comfortable. He took some big shots as well from when Troy did land that right hand, and spun his head back. I was thinking, ooh, what's gonna happen?
Is this the point?
Point? I think when you're comfortable at a weight, your conditioning is what goes with that, as long as you train correctly. But you'll feel better for it, and you could just see that.
I mean, the cornering, Adam Booth was just smiling through the fight, wasn't he?
Yeah, Adam Booth wanted. You could tell Adam Booth wanted to shut up the critics and prove an extra point by standing up, smiling, taking it easy. Because obviously they read the criticisms. I think that was just an FU to everyone basically from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a great performance, and you're right about maybe the weight's better for him. You do see Josh, as you said, you do see someone that's not comfortable at the weight or maybe crashed the weight tends to be 5'6", like the plug's been pulled. So maybe the new weight was. It's a good performance. On the undercard fight we talked about before, Lyndon Arthur, which is probably the only one we'll talk about on this card, Lyndon Arthur versus Joel McIntyre. We knew it was going to be had the potential to be a good fight. Lyndon Arthur showed levels.
I thought, as I say, I thought Lyndon Arthur would win and been fairly comfortable. I thought Joel would give him a bit of a longer time in the ring. But yeah, fair play to Lyndon Arthur. That 1-2 that set was brilliant.
It was
clinical, wasn't it? I know Joel did sort of like a little jump, sort of like a, tried to sort of, I don't know what it was, but he did sort of was like a little thing with his foot string. But Lyndon Arthur was like a sniper with a 1-2, just as a thing.
Just demonstrated levels, different levels.
No shame in that, Lyndon Arthur.
No, absolutely.
I mean, Joel McIntyre's a very, very good small hall boxer at the top of his game, English champion. But Lyndon Arthur has beaten Anthony Yard once. He's won one with Anthony Yard's. Yard fights Beterbiev. We are talking different stratospheres.
Yeah.
Fair play to Joel. Like I say, I think got caught early. We thought he was probably going to go that way, but like you say, Josh, there's no shame in that happening.
Did you see? So did you see who they're matching Lyndon Arthur up with now?
No.
Callum Smith.
Are they?
Apparently.
Really?
Is that been announced?
Already?
Been sort of.
Or is that through the boxing hashtag
rumoured.
boxing Twitter?
But yeah, but the person that leaked it is quite renowned for getting it right.
Good fight, to be fair.
Yeah.
What do we think of that, Hannah? What do you think of that fight? If that fight's been made, we're not saying it has been made, but if it does get made, what do you think about that? Callum Smith versus Lyndon Arthur's a good fight.
I think that's a great fight. I must admit, I really envy Lyndon Arthur's jab. He's got one of the best jabs in British boxing. It's beautiful to watch. But yeah, that's an exciting fight. I would see Lyndon Arthur potentially going on the back foot in that fight. And he's very effective on the back foot, but I don't know. It's quite an exciting fight to watch.
If you had to pick, who would you go with?
No offence sitting on.
I'm asking, like I say, and I'm coming to you two as well, so get your thinking caps on. But Hannah, I'm throwing you to the walls first of all. So it's who would you go with?
I think I'd go with Callum.
Bit more experience, just a little bit of that world level.
Yeah, just a little bit more experience. But I'm a massive fan of Lyndon Arthur. So I'd love to see him do it.
It's a great fight. Steve?
Callum Smith.
Comfortable?
He'll have I think he wins relatively comfortably, probably on points.
I completely agree. It's a well-matched fight.
But it's a really good fight. Well, you can't be sure, but I think Callum Smith probably got that little bit too.
Yeah,
it's a well-matched fight if it happens. We don't know if it happening, but we
can't confirm that.
Can't confirm or deny. But it's a great fight if that happens. There obviously was one other big fight at the weekend, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, outside in the freezing cold. It must have been. Did you go?
I was actually, yeah.
It must have been freezing.
So I will say I was really lucky to be given tickets in a box. So
okay.
I didn't actually have to freeze to death. So
I can imagine.
I feel very spoiled. But because I boxed at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where I won my 2 world titles, so I was lucky to get a little bit of advantage with that and get a box, not freeze. But yeah, the undercard, interesting fight with the Dubois Lorena.
Yep.
I can talk about that in a minute. But the Fury Chisora fight for me is a little bit painful to watch. I really felt it was just too much, and I'm really glad the ref stepped in.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I think was it Victor Loughlin?
Victor Loughlin.
Yeah, I mean, massive fan of his anyway, being a Scottish ref, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Big up Victor.
I think he did the right thing, and because no one else was going to come in and save Derek because he's just a warrior.
Oh.
Yeah, for me, that fight should have been stopped the 5th or 6th round.
Yeah.
I was watching it with a couple of my friends, and I was saying to them at the time, this needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
It was just a beating. His face was getting battered.
His whole side of his face was swollen after the fight, and just thinking,
I think Fury sort of held him up a little bit,
It did look like
but almost made it worse because that almost prolonged the beating a little bit in terms of that. I'd like to have seen. I know I put a statement up about it. I don't know what your opinions are. I'd like to. The corner should have been looking at pulling him out, I think, before that. I know Derek's a warrior.
Health comes first, though.
Yeah, he wasn't going to win the fight. He'd never hurt Fury. I'd like to have seen him.
It wasn't even competitive at any point, was it?
No.
Yeah.
And the thing is, well, from the times they fought before, Tyson Fury's improved and Derek hasn't, and that's kind of. I mean, it played out how we thought it was going to play out, Steve. Really.
Well, I was watching Status Quo perform rocking all over the world at Wembley, so I missed it, and I haven't bothered to watch it because it read what Hannah has said, and I didn't want to. I just didn't want to watch it.
What I'd also say is, I know we've come into criticism from some people about our harsh opinions on referee and judges, but as Hannah said, Victor Loughlin is stopping that. Fair play to him, because for me, that's a real hard stoppage for a ref to do. Because it wasn't at any point Derek Chisora's legs were completely gone
No.
or getting beaten up around the ring, like not defenseless. His hands were up and he was defending.
That was just empathy. You know, that was him
Yeah.
just like
A lot of wrestlers have
caring.
done that though.
Yeah.
And he tried it the ninth, didn't he? Had a word with the
Yeah.
corner, was in the corner for most of that
Yeah.
round, sort of, almost, I'm assuming saying I need to see something from you
Yeah.
to do it. But yeah, it was good referee, and it must have been a very hard conversation. Fair play, Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora is a warrior. He's given us many good nights. He's always
I love Del Boy. I think
competitive.
he's great.
He's fantastic. He probably doesn't get the credit he deserves
No.
in respect for that as we come into fight. Do we think we'll see Fury Usyk next?
No.
Hopefully.
You don't think he will? Okay.
I personally don't think that's what will be next. I think it will be him versus Joyce.
You think Joyce next? Okay, that's interesting. That's a really good fight. I'm actually looking forward to that more than
It's
you.
Usyk Joyce, you think?
No, I think
It's Fury
Joyce
Joyce.
Fury
Oh, do you?
for Usyk. Yeah, because I just think that like the Usyk fight is going to take a little bit more to actually happen, and there's
Sure.
going to be a longer delay. Obviously, having Fury just fought, he says he's going to be ready to go like March. He's
Yeah.
not going to be ready.
He's got
to
elbow surgery coming
Yeah,
up
he's
as
got
well,
elbow
isn't he?
surgery,
Yeah.
so it's like you can say you're going to be ready all you want, but you're
Yeah.
not going to be.
No, yeah.
So I feel like we're probably going to see Usyk defend against somebody else.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe Otto Wallin.
Mhm.
Maybe that would happen there. I don't know, but you might see that. And instead, I think the Joyce fights first.
Okay, interesting. Steve, do you think the same things, or do you think Usyk next?
I think it's hard to know what's going to be made. I think
I think
I'd
it'll be Usyk next, and I think it'll be Chisora Joyce. I think
No, it can't be.
No,
I
it
think
can't
they'll
be.
roll out
It
Chisora
can't be
again.
that Chisora gets absolutely beaten up
I know,
to a pulp.
but I think we can
Can't.
see that.
Joe Joyce is like, he's such a big puncher, and he's got like one of the best chins in boxing ever.
People are not going to want to see that. They're not.
No.
I
They're
can
not.
still see it, haven't they?
No, it won't happen. It can't happen. Surely not. Somebody's got to stop that happening. I mean, it's wrong. It's
No,
just wrong.
I agree, but I can still see it might could happen.
I mean,
Anyway,
how,
sorry,
I mean,
what
how
you
do you
saying
think?
anyway?
How do you think the Tyson Fury Joe Joyce fight goes?
So I think we'll actually see Fury have to work hard, and we'll actually have to see his skill set really on show. And I don't think he's going to want to try and be the big man and push Joyce back, because that, as we've seen with Joyce in a lot of his fights, he's not easily pushed back. He just comes forward. There's a reason he's called the Juggernaut. It makes sense. I think Fury will employ his boxing skills, go on the back foot, and make it hard for Joyce to come in. But I do think it's going to be a lot more competitive than people might think.
I actually think it might be more competitive than Usyk Fury.
Do you think?
Yeah. I don't think... Usyk, I think, is brilliant. I just don't think he keeps Fury off of him for that point.
I think
Fury will close the gap and lean on him. And
I think that's a
be
really
too
valid
big.
argument for me, but I think Usyk beats everyone else in the division.
Everyone else apart from Fury. Do you think Usyk beats Joyce?
Yep.
Just two boxing skills?
Yep. Look at, I know they're both improved since, but they fought each other in the world
WSB,
yeah,
wasn't
whatever
it?
it's called.
Yeah.
And you can see then, I know Joyce has improved and so has Usyk, but you can just see there, just when he goes on his back foot, dances around, you just can't get near him.
No.
And I think he punches a lot harder than people do give him credit for as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be interesting. Hannah, what do you think if that was to happen, Usyk versus Joyce? How do you think that would go?
So when Usyk fought AJ, there was a couple of moments when AJ did hurt Usyk, being the bigger man, and you can see Joyce is just the bigger guy, and he has a lot of power. So if he does connect with Usyk, I think we can see maybe a knockdown or something. But I just more likely think that Usyk just has the better boxing skill to stay out of range, come in and out, and just basically box his head off.
Okay.
But I think again another competitive fight.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure we'll see that one before we'll see one or the other.
Interesting. I think Usyk beats Wilder, but I think Joyce might beat him. Steve?
So which one am I talking about now?
We're talking about Usyk Joyce. Let's go with that first.
Usyk to beat Joyce on a close points decision.
I do agree with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and Usyk Fury?
Fury too big and beats Usyk probably points 8-4, something like that.
And then Fury Joyce. It's getting confusing trying to remember all these.
Fury to win a very drawn out hard fight, but on probably again on points.
Would we be happy with Fury Usyk, Fury Joyce?
Yeah.
Any of those would be happy.
I think they're actually both really good fights, but I can't understand why Fury would want to fight Joe Joyce. You're gonna have no matter if
Agree.
you win, you're gonna have a really hard night. if I was Fury, for me, it's all about you've earned a lot of money. It's all about completing the legacy.
It's better fighting AJ. It's an easier fight for him.
What?
That's why I
Fury.
don't. That's why I think you'd end up with
Fury's better
Chisora.
fighting AJ. It's a much easier fight.
For who?
Yeah,
Fury.
for Fury.
Oh, fighting AJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But for me, Fury always talks about retiring. He needs to have 2 more fights, I think, to go for everyone to remember him like as good as he is. Usyk, then AJ. Goodbye. See you later.
Well, that could happen as well. We could see it that way. I don't know if the AJ fight is happening. I don't know who AJ fights next. God knows what happens with that whole thing. You mentioned it earlier on, Hannah, the Daniel Dubois fight. 3 rounds of utter chaos.
Complete.
3 rounds.
3 rounds.
3 rounds of just utter carnage.
You have to see. You have to see it.
I've only
Yeah.
seen the highlights. I haven't
You
watched the whole
have
fight
to
yet.
see it. It's crazy. Like, so basically, when I saw this fight was put together, I was like, ooh, that could be a tricky one for Dubois, because Levin is a southpaw, and also he's a well-established fighter in his own right. Like he said in his interviews, I get paid the same in South Africa. I'm not coming here for a payday. I'm coming here to win.
Sure.
And I think it was a great test and a matchup. But that first round, can we just say a little bit about the first round?
Yeah,
Like
well, yeah. I mean, just
three kind of knockdowns, and it finished early.
yeah, 9 seconds in the
9.
end.
Did it really finish?
Yeah,
that?
9
Yeah,
seconds, wasn't it?
it finished
Yeah.
9 seconds.
I read
Yeah.
that. Well, that was true, was it?
Yeah, it was not well.
And who
It-
was on top when it was
It was
stopped?
the first round, so Dubois was all over the place.
Yeah, all over the
Well,
They gave him
dropped.
10 seconds early.
To be honest, it wouldn't have made much of a difference because he had gone down anyway.
3 times.
So by the time the count had been completed, it would have been next in 2 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't actually save him at all, really. In the
And that's going on the basis that the graphics on the telly are
Which are not
correct,
always right.
Which are not
Yeah.
always right. But I haven't gone back and actually timed the round, so
No.
we don't know.
Not that sad.
Not that sad. But yeah, I mean, but what it does tell you about Dubois is he's still got some improvements to make. Do we think?
I think he's going to be an exciting fight, but the reason is he's got vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
No shame in that, but there are going to be some people that exploit them, like Joe Joyce did, and
Mhm.
like they nearly did on Saturday. But Dubois, you're going to get an exciting fight. So there's
He's a
no
heavyweight.
shame in it.
He's a heavyweight after all. so
Absolutely.
heavyweights are in exciting fights, but I just think people forget how young he is as a fighter as well.
Yeah.
Was he like 25 or something
Yeah,
like that?
he's young for a heavyweight.
He's
That's
young
for sure.
a heavyweight,
yeah, absolutely.
and he's up there now on quite a big stage with his title. And I think everyone was all complaining about 3 knockdown rules. The WBA have this rule, blah blah blah. I was like, it's not the same under unified rules, so
Mhm,
that
absolutely.
changes, doesn't it?
Sure, absolutely.
But I think that was a huge hoo-ha. I think there's going to be a complaint put in, probably from, I think is it Rodney Berman? Yeah. So he's with Levin. I think there'll be a complaint, potentially for a rematch or something.
Yeah.
But, I think Dubois does have,
He hurt his ankle, Dubois, as well, didn't he? Down 3 times in the first round. Was it
wasn't
hurt
an
his
an-
ankles
it
or a knee?
wasn't an ankle injury.
It wasn't?
So they think it was a shot high on the temple. 'Cause
Okay.
The other 2 times he went down the round, I don't think he actually...
He just dropped to give
He
himself
just
some
dropped.
time, didn't he?
Yeah. It wasn't quite so clean as everybody thought it was. I
Sure.
don't think so, but I think it was a really exciting fight, and a great sort of co-main.
and if that is a rematch, we'd definitely watch that, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Everybody would
definitely.
tune in for that.
Did either of you see what Cole Frampton said after the fight?
No.
I think he mentioned that his corner weren't looking after
He
him.
basically said he should have been pulled out after the first round because when Dubois sat on the stool, he said, "What happened?"
Oh,
So
really?
obviously,
Yeah.
there's obviously a backstory of Frampton and McGuigan, but he was saying, "Oh, I was clearly concussed. They should have basically should have pulled him out."
Wow.
I reckon we should make Dubois Deontay Wilder. That's the fight I want.
Deontay Wilder?
Yeah.
Harsh.
Really?
Wouldn't that be a great shootout? Wouldn't it be great?
Well, I think Wilder kills him.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to see the fight.
Oh yeah, it'd be
Bit
great.
exciting.
Seeing that and look, there's no shame in it. Heavyweights getting called. That makes the Joe Joyce fight now look mental,
Yeah, it does.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
To see Dubois there the Joyce fight looks crazy to have that so early in his career. Steve, I'm looking at you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, he's nowhere near ready. The problem you've got with Dubois, he's got an interim world title.
Yeah.
And a lot of the top heavyweights could potentially beat him.
There's not many top heavyweights though.
No, I mean, I fancy Wilder would.
You got Wilder, AJ.
Well, AJ Dubois is a good fight. Dylan,
Joyce.
the fight they
Do you
should
think
make is
Dubois
Dylan.
at
The
that
fight they
level,
should
though?
make is.
Would you put Dubois in that conversation?
No way.
I know it's interim world title,
Yeah,
but,
but would you put Dubois? The other one you could put Dubois in with his just sort of
Phil Williams.
good old Phil.
Get on, Phil.
Good old Phil.
Phil.
Dubois in with Dylan White's a good fight.
That's a good fight.
That's a good
Yeah, that's
fight.
a decent fight.
Yep, definitely.
That's a prop.
Or
Now
even-
that fight's more. That fight is very. I think.
Or
good.
the Franklin that Dylan White just fought. That'd be a good fight.
Yeah,
for
even-
Or Chisora. You could see that.
No,
not Chisora.
You could see it.
Stop
You
bringing
could
that
see it.
man's name
You're
out.
right, though. No,
He's-
no, no.
he's-
What have you got against Derek?
No, nothing. But he won't retire, and they will keep using him.
If he doesn't retire, he will be in those fights.
He's already come out and says he's not retiring. He came out after the fight and said, "I'm not retiring on that."
For me, the boxing fans should not watch Derek. We should not encourage that because he's only going to end up at a
I
particular
agree.
result.
I totally agree.
But
No, I
the
think
problem
Derek should
is,
retire.
your general boxing fan will always go and watch
Absolutely,
Derek.
yeah.
Your boxing geeks like us lot.
Yeah.
We might say, oh, we're not going to watch it because we're worried for his health and his safety. But Joe Bloggs over here who just likes to go and watch the heavyweight fights, they'll be watching it.
100%.
We make little difference, but it's better to try and do something than nothing for me.
But he could end up being the second Danny Williams.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and we wouldn't want to
That
see
was
that.
quite sad, wasn't it?
We
Yeah.
wouldn't want to see that for Derek for sure.
I was going to ask, so did you see when the fight was stopped with Dubois and Lorena? Did you see that the punch, so when the bell had gone, there was a few punches came in after the bell, which is, these things happen.
Sure.
But then, do you think Lorena should have been given the chance to recover?
I don't know. Lorena afterwards seemed to be quite comfortable with it. Afterwards, he came out and said, "Look, I come up a little bit short." Although we obviously moaned at things. So I don't know. I think he was.
I think he took some big shots.
Yeah, he took some big
definitely.
shots. Yeah.
Let me ask another question. If it was on the other way round,
I knew he was going to ask this question.
Yeah.
and it was
We get
Dubois
zinged
on the
for this.
receiving end, would it have been stopped?
I don't know.
I'm just asking a question. I'm not
I
saying
don't know.
Probably not, as he's the home fighter.
correct.
Yes.
And I hate to say
And
that.
that's the
that's
problem I have with
different.
things like
Yeah.
that. If that is true, if that is true, that is bad. That is not how it should be.
No.
Move on.
You like upset a bit, right? Yeah. Okay. So coming up this weekend, we got the Eddie Hearn show, the Matchroom Zone show at the First Direct Arena in Leeds. Josh Warrington, obviously coming off his last win against Kiko Martinez, wasn't it? Last time out.
Yep.
He fights Luis Alberto Lopez for his IBF World Featherweight title. What do we think? Good fight.
I haven't had a look at Lopez, so I'd be lying. I'm not going to.
Lopez is the one, I believe, beat Isaac Lowe when he came over here before. Stopped him in 7 rounds, I
That
think.
doesn't mean anything.
No, but
So-
so he's been here before.
I mean,
think.
look, I
He's a
think.
decent level fighter, isn't he?
Yeah,
and
20,
I think-
26 and 2.
Look, they're going to be Matchroom are going to be matching Josh Warrington to win.
Yeah,
So
especially-
they've obviously got a little bit of a storyline behind the defeat of Isaac Lowe, but Isaac Lowe and Josh Warrington are not on the same level. I would. I mean, I've watched that fight. If that's the guy, and I think Warrington beats him.
Hannah, do you know much about?
Yeah, no, I see Josh winning this one. I think Lopez is going to bring, he's going to bring that fire right at the very beginning, and I think it's going to be a case of just Josh, working it out at the beginning. But I see Josh winning this one.
Yeah, he's been managed so well, Josh. We always use him as a template. Then we
One of
started
the
on
best
small
managed,
ball.
one of the best managed fighters in the country. Props to Steve Wood. He's done a brilliant job with him. He took him from small hall, got his fan base built up, moved him onto a TV platform. Absolute brilliant management by Steve Wood.
Didn't he have something like 12 4-rounders or something crazy like
He
that?
built.
So
He
just
built him
up
really
and
well.
built
He
and
built
and built and built.
patience. Yeah.
And Hannah, your best place to this. Obviously, got an IBF World Bantamweight title, female fight on the card. Ebony Bridges versus Shannon O'Connell. 2 Aussies going at it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So this is a great fight. I think this is the one that I'm actually really quite excited about on the card because it's got some real needle in it. Being the 2 Aussie girls, they do not like each other.
No, they don't. That is genuine,
They
isn't it? They
genuinely
don't
dislike each other a lot. And I think those fights always tend to have a little bit extra about them.
Sure.
But I also think this is a big defense for Ebony, and O'Connell's going to want to take that away from her because I think there's a small amount of jealousy with potentially some of the Australian fighters who don't have the opportunities that Ebony's got because of how Ebony's built her brand and everything like this. So I feel like there's a little bit of jealousy there. So she's going to want to prove a point. So I think we're in for a firefight. I think it's going to be great.
Just on that, before we come back to the thing, and you may not want to answer, and it's fine. You said there about obviously everything's about the way she built a profile, stuff like that. As a female fighter, 2 times world champion, what do you think about that? Do you praise it? Do you think why not? You got to, you have to find your angle, you have to find your niche, or does it go against a little bit against the grain for you? Again, I'm not trying to put you in any uncomfortable positions.
No, it's fine. I've been asked this a couple of times before, and I give all props to Ebony for building her brand like that, because we at the end of the day, as a fighter, you have to sell tickets.
Sure.
And if you don't sell tickets, you're not really viable, are you? You're not going to make money for promoters. You're not going to be successful for yourself. So you have to sell tickets. And she's come to the UK, built herself up over here, got a huge fan base. It is not the way I would do it, because I can't imagine my dad seeing me in lingerie on TV. It's just the most embarrassing thought in the whole entire world.
Sure.
So I'm not that person. And when I was a young girl, I was really body conscious, and I was very self-conscious of myself. So I always want to go down the route of, being strong, being active, being fit, and being healthy is where you want to be as a female fighter. I don't want to be sexualizing myself.
Sure.
But that's not the route that everybody goes down. And I think, a lot of fighters, damn it. But at the end of the day, she's selling thousands of tickets.
Absolutely.
Here. And, she's... Was it co-main in Leeds?
Co-main event. Yeah, absolutely.
I know it's a world title, but even then before that, she's been quite high up there on the cards at home here, and it's because she sells a good number of tickets. It's not something I would do, but I'm not going to sit here and say no, she shouldn't, because I think a lot of people will buy tickets to watch Anthony Joshua because he's quite good looking too.
Sure,
so.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How much of a threat do you think she's under this week of losing?
Yeah, so I was going to say, obviously Shannon O'Connell is much more experienced, 23-6-1 as a record, obviously Ebony 8-1. So it's a big difference in professional experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think, this is a genuine test for Ebony, and it is a potential, well, I would say banana skin, but it is a dangerous fight for her. But I think that will to win in Ebony is really strong, and obviously the success she's having, she's not going to want to lose that, and I think that's going to drive her in this fight. O'Connell's, I don't think she's fought outside of Australia.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be fair. I did look the other day about her. I can't remember from the top.
I'm not sure she's had as much experience outside of there.
No.
And being on that big stage in Leeds, where Ebony's basically, she is the home fighter.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. She aligned herself, didn't she, with the Leeds Football Club?
They
very
love
good,
her in Leeds.
Very good commercial decision. She picked Leeds as her, and we know the Leeds fan base are crazy and passionate.
So it'd be quite a lot for O'Connell to be taking that on fight night as co-main event.
Yeah,
it's a big difference to fighting on a stage like that than it is to fighting at home, where you're kind of used to how it goes. Sort of
and we know the atmosphere that Josh Warrington brings, and basically everyone that's there for Josh Warrington is going to cheer for Ebony, isn't it?
Absolutely,
they're going to be the same thing. So it will be a cauldron to come into. So that kind of wraps up everything we're to talk about in review. One, just want to touch on quickly. Another Smith, Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. has been announced the 21st of January. What do we think of that, Josh?
They publicised it as the fight everyone was demanding. I messaged a few different people and went, have you seen anyone actually asking for this fight? And they were like, no. But what I would say, it is a very, very good and evenly matched fight. So I'm actually looking forward to it, but I think a pay-per-view is a bit of a stretch personally. But yeah, you can't complain about the matchmaking, but it's a fight I'd like to see on normal Sky Sports personally.
Who do you think wins?
Eubank.
You do? Just too much?
Too powerful, too strong.
Steve, what do you think of the fight?
I think it's a good fight. It's I don't like saying we're saying it's pay-per-view or not, because if people pay for it, if it's too
No, just my part. I personally wouldn't pay for it.
But they obviously feel they're going to get
tight ass.
I am sometimes.
But I mean, I think that Eubank wins. I mean, I rate Eubank. I think he wins, but it'd be an okay fight to watch. I'm not sure it's going to be a firecracker and an amazing fight. I think it'd be more technical than anything else. But I think Eubank will have that little bit too much for Liam Smith. Probably win sort of 7-5, 8-4, something like
It
that.
wouldn't surprise me if he stops Liam later either, to be honest.
Potentially, but I don't think Chris has got a massive.
No, but he punches enough. You see what he done to.
But Liam Williams went the distance.
Yeah, but I think Eubank just sort of danced around after a bit, didn't he? I'm not saying he will, but
I don't think he goes for the kill. I think he wins on points, but it probably wide enough. 7-5, 8-4.
It could be one of those fights that you always feel like he's just about to catch a light, but never does. Hannah, what do you think of the fight? And do you think it's a good fight for Eubank? Obviously, we've had the Conor Benn scandal, if we can call it that now. Is it a good fight back for him?
I think it's a good fight back for him. He's going to need a fight. You know, he's got a lot of frustration, I think, after that situation there, and who wouldn't, to be perfectly honest. But you know, he needed. I think this guy is a good one for him to come in against, because, you know, it's not going to be one where he can just walk around and do whatever he likes. He's actually going to have to put in a bit of work in the fight, and I think that's what will make it exciting. I agree, probably not pay-per-view for me, but, you know, then again, some people would pay for it, so it just depends. So
no, it's a really good fight. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Talking obviously next year, big fights coming up. There's potentially big fights coming up for you next year. Obviously, last time out, the Terry Harper fight wasn't the last I had. What's your plans now? Tell us about the Terry Harper fight, and tell us what your plans in going into 2023 and what you hope to achieve for the rest of the year.
So I'm looking to be out again next year, hopefully February, March time. We'll be wrapped with an 8-rounder sort of comeback fight. I'm still ranked very highly with all of the governing bodies. So, you know, for me, the goal is next year to be regaining my world titles. And that's exactly where I intend to be. I intend to be world champion in 2023. So, you know, that's my focus. The fight with Terry in September didn't go the way I wanted it to go. First time I've been cut in 18 professional fights, and like I said, it'd have to be when I was defending 2 world titles. Go big or go home. So yeah, no.
Did that affect you mentally in the fight? Sorry to cut across there. Was you aware of? Obviously, you was aware of the cut, but how aware was you? And did that make a difference in you know, the rounds as it went on?
Definitely made a difference. Obviously, the first time ever being cut, and also it was quite a big cut, so it actually affected my vision. So I couldn't really see out this eye, so I was pretty blind in this side of my eye. Though I wasn't gonna get pulled out because they're my world titles and I was defending them.
Sure.
So you know, it did make a difference, and it's something like you can always look back on these things and think, oh, that was rubbish, but actually you learn a lot from the situation. So I've taken from that and I've learned from that, and if I ever get cut again, you know, I'll know how I'm going to work through it. I think for me, with the fight prior to that, when I was fighting Alejandra, and obviously the fact that she went through the difficulty of having to go to hospital, she was put in an induced coma, and, you know, and had come out of that. That was a very stressful situation, and that was a lot of stress to have to deal with for that fight, and then going into the next one. And I didn't think I was my full 100% going into the next fight. So, you know, you live and you learn.
Sure.
But thankfully she's all okay, which is good. And I've learned from that experience. Tough way to learn, lose my world titles, but I fully intend to get them back next year.
With and just to touch on that a little bit, and maybe not many people knew that obviously, you know, that the opponent you had prior to Terry Harper did go to hospital, was induced in a coma, as you said. How did that affect you? I know you said it did affect you. How did it affect you in terms of that? Was it on your mind during the Harper fight? What was it like straight after the fight when she was in hospital? What are these emotions? This is something that's not really talked about that people don't know, and it would have had a huge impact on you. But I just don't know if you can just tell us a little bit about what that might have been like.
It was a horrible time, because actually that fight in Scotland was I was the first ever female to be headlining at the Hydro, so I was following the footsteps of Josh Taylor, Ricky Burns, like 2 heroes of mine. So it was a massive night for me, and actually the build up to it had been incredible. We'd had a huge turnout of people. The public workout was insane, and, you know, it just, because it was a female fight, and the way that we'd kind of built the publicity around it, we had a huge change in sort of the crowd that attended. It wasn't just a lads night. It was like, you know, people bringing their kids, you know, there was aunts, uncles, mums, you know, grandparents, there was that. Everybody was there, and it was a real change of sort of an audience for boxing, and that's, for me, that's something I want to see going into the future. I want to see that, mums come along to it. It's not just a guy's night out,
Sure.
and I want to see young girls get involved in the sport. So big night for me. It went so well. Obviously, I got a 10th round stoppage, one of my best performances in the ring, but unfortunately, then I was kind of stuck in limbo because I couldn't celebrate my success because unfortunately Alejandra was taken to hospital, and the next day, obviously, I find out she's in an induced coma. So this then goes on for like another sort of, I don't know, she's in there for maybe another month before she can go back to Mexico. She's all fine now and fully, she's recovered. She won't
100% recovered. No box again, but 100%
she won't
recovered.
box again, but she's recovered and she's back with the family. And we supported her all the way through that and kept the family in Scotland. Had them stay in the hotel that they were in for the whole time. So, they were there with their daughter, and that was just so important for me. But it was a very difficult time, and it's actually something you touched on earlier about social media. So it was the first time I really experienced the negativity of social media, because I've always used it as a positive tool to kind of support people, put good ideas out there, support, like sponsor my things that are coming up, and just do good things with it. But there was a lot of negativity with that. I woke up to articles saying that she died. People messaged me calling me a murderer. It's a whole other world of stuff that I'd never experienced, and I think for me that was horrible.
Is that really what you had? People messaging you saying you was a murderer?
Yeah, because people actually reported saying that she died when she hadn't died, and all of these things were coming out, and this is what I would say to people when it comes to Twitter, especially. If you see something, an article that isn't confirmed by regular press, please don't retweet it. If it could be saying something that's not true, and spreading a story that's not actually correct, and that can cause a lot of damage for people, reading it, because people in Mexico were seeing this and saying, "Oh my God, what's happened?" sort of thing.
Of course,
So my team contacted a friend of mine who works for ESPN Latino, and she put out an article saying she's actually fine, she's recovering, she's with her family, blah, blah. So that helped with the situation. But you never think you're going to be the person involved in that situation. So I've gone into the ring and I've visualized myself getting hurt. I just never thought about that happening to my opponent. So, it was a lot to deal with. And then I had the break after that, and I was working through all of that with chatting to sports psychologists and things like that. But then, of course, we had the next fight come up.
It was literally only 3 or 4 months later, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't that long later. And in hindsight, I probably should have given myself more of a rest. But I was being world champion, wanted to defend what was mine. I was like, what? I also wanted to kind of take from the last one. I was like, right, this was not a great feeling. I want to get rid of that and go straight into another one and do it again. Have a good fight. And I think I've learned a lot from that.
But I mean, look, 2 times world champion. It's a brilliant position to be in. And I'm sure there'll be many more many more in the future. 2023 for sure. Steve, we mentioned earlier on about, obviously you were saying about Hannah, what a great job a team has done to navigate it to position. Obviously, a manager yourself, you know how difficult it is to get people to do the thing. Just, I don't know if you want to have any comments on that. And
yeah, I mean, I can spend time here highlighting lots and lots of boxers whose careers have never fulfilled what they should because of poor management. And I don't do that out of any pride or malice. It's frustration that boxers aren't looked after properly, right? But when I see somebody that I do believe has been well managed, I like to say that as well. Do you know what I mean? And you've done apart from being managed, you've had to do it. It's been an amazing journey, and you've done fantastic. And next year, I'm sure you'll go on to do more things. But it's so good to see a success story where somebody has achieved something and they've not underachieved.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think it's amazing, and the team's been brilliant. She's been brilliant, and full credit to all of them. It's been brilliant. It's been great.
And Hannah, full-time pro now. I mean, I know you
Yeah.
do some classical music stuff, but we'll come on to that in a little bit. But yeah, full-time pro, training all the time now. How does that work out? Is that obviously a life much from the start to where you was to where you're now? It must be a huge difference.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm very blessed to say that now, coming up for my 19th pro fight, I'm a full-time athlete, which is an incredible thing to say, because when I started out, it was still very much when you were down at York Hall, people saying, "Oh, it's a chicks fight, let's go to the bar." So, you know, that's definitely changed now. And must say, massive shout out to Eddie Hearn. With at the time he was still with Sky Sports, so when they did all the fights in the garden and stuff like that. But that we had a captive audience at home, and he decided to put on some of the top level female fights, and it meant that people were forced to watch us because there's nothing else to watch.
Sure.
And suddenly they realised women's boxing is great,
Yeah.
and people have really got behind it. Women have become household names, you know, and I'm so proud to be one of them. And you know, we've got young girls in Scotland looking up to me, hopefully going to follow in my footsteps. It would be incredible. But it's been a real change around for women's sport, and I think Eddie does deserve a shout out for that.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely was the one, I think, that brought the most through. Obviously, the Katie Taylor was probably the one that started the main attraction, wasn't it? And then
He was the only one that was genuinely really interested in women's boxing.
went into building it. And you must have seen that in your career. You would have seen the real life change. You would have seen it real time, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, and that's what's quite exciting. It's like being at the forefront of change. So I often say that, but it's like, it's kind of how I imagined, you know, when women were trying to get the vote. I feel like that's how they must feel when they saw things finally change and stuff started to happen. It sounds a bit dramatic, but it is like that sort of exciting, because at the beginning, Noel was phoning up companies like, you know, potential like building or scaffolding companies saying, "I've got this great fighter, we don't sponsor women. We're not interested in women's boxing. We don't care about it. It's not a thing." I had loads of people say to me, "Why do you want to box? You know, you've got 3 degrees. You don't need to box. You don't need to do this." And I was like, well, I'm actually really passionate about sport. I love it. And now it's not, I don't get asked as many silly questions like that, you know, and to be able to now sit here and say I can be a full-time athlete through some endorsement deals I work with, sponsorship, and through my own fighting career is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to see the rise of you, and like you say, to go on to win the 2 world titles, and I'm sure there'll be more. Josh, do you think there'll be more female boxers tonight? Do we think that the female side's going to grow? Do we think it's going to be, you know, more and more of and see more and more half and half cards, basically? Do you know what I mean? A card filled with half females and half males.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. You've seen it grow exponentially in football. You had obviously, I think it was the Arsenal United Women's Super League game broke the record.
Yeah,
nearly 60,000. I think we've seen boxing. We've had all women's cards now, and I think if you go back 10, 15 years when I was at school, you didn't ever really see professional women, apart from, I'd say, tennis and golf. As outside those 2 sports, every other sport probably lagged behind.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing probably the mainstream sports of football, now boxing. I think you're going to encourage more girls to come through and try all these sports out, which I think will just get you have more and more come through over the next 10, 15 years. So I think it's only going to grow. It can only get better, and hopefully everyone, especially the females, earn more money. So.
And Steve, from a management point of view, is there any difference between managing a female to a male?
And for me, when I've been managing females for quite a long time. I probably was actively looking to manage females when others weren't right at the start, and managed quite a few all the way through. To me, the only difference is it's a harder job because it's harder to match and manage. But I mean, we've got Lauren Parker at the moment, she's the IBO Intercontinental champion. So we're starting to progress with Lauren, and it's a great. I mean, I love to see it, and I was always like when Eddie was doing it. I was out there promoting women's boxing when other people didn't want to do it, and for me, it's a great thing to see them do it. But is it more difficult? In reality, yes and no. Yes, in that when they do the early fights, it's harder to get the opponents.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, in that you can progress faster. And you can get towards a higher level much quicker.
That will eventually change.
But at the moment it means, I mean, Lauren's career has done very well since she signed with us, but she's what, 2 fights away from a world
Well, she could
title,
fight for it. She
maybe?
could fight for a world title.
She
no.
could, but she needs a bit more experience. But
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
2 fights away. So we're not far off for giving her opportunity. So it's great.
Yeah, definitely think it will go. And Hannah, let's say, well done for being the forefront. Well done for what you've done. I know you and Noel have worked really hard to try and push the female side of the sport forward. Eddie can do what he can do, but ultimately you've got to get there and do the work and do the fighting and do that. And you've had some trials and tribulations to overcome. So well done for that. What is the future look like for Hannah Rankin? Obviously, I know we want more world titles, we want more belts, we want stuff, but what's the long-term plan for Hannah?
So for myself, I never thought I'd ever say this, but I would like to work in commentary when I retire. That is an area that I would really like to work in. I've had some experience with the BBC, Sky Sports, Fight Zone, and it's just an area that I really, really enjoy. I basically get to be a geek about something I really like. And I get to talk about, I mean, don't ask me to do it for football, but for boxing, yeah. And I really enjoy the research of the fighters. I enjoy looking at previous bouts of theirs, and I enjoy actually watching people in the ring and, talking about it. And I think for me, it's just an area that I really would enjoy to be involved in. So fingers crossed. It started a lot earlier than I thought it would. I was thinking I was going to have to retire before I get to do any of it, but I've had some great opportunities. So that's an area that I'd like to be involved in.
You've done great at the moment. You're articulate. You know your boxing, which is hugely important. How does it differ from Fight Zone to something like The Zone, for instance? Obviously, I know you do your own research in the fighters. When you go on The Zone, is there a lot of help from them as well? Is there lots of prep, or is it just here's a microphone, go and stand over there and we'll cut to you in 15 seconds?
Well, I'm still waiting for my opportunity with The Zone, but with Sky, no, it's, we have... There's a lot of other stuff that actually goes on in the background that people don't know about. So how the show is going to run, when things are going to happen, and there's etiquette to commentary. So when I first started out, I was working on Fight Zone with Don McGuinness and Glenn McCrory, and I was the third person there. So there's etiquette. So they hand to you to speak, and there's certain times when you should talk, when you shouldn't talk, and it's very much learning how that all works. But I do all my own research before I go in, and we're given notes on various things, but not always. And sometimes it's like, so have you ever seen who this person fought, or what in their fourth fight they fought this person? Did you know that so and so? And I was like, I did know because I researched it, but it's just because I'm a bit of a geek that I'm like that. But I do think it's you have to learn quite a lot about it. I did some commentary with 5 Live with Bunsey, and that was radio commentary. So that is so different. And massive shout out to Nathan. Is it Nathan McIntosh?
Ronald McIntosh.
Ronald McIntosh.
Ronald McIntosh, yep.
I know a Nathan McIntosh.
Yeah.
Ronald McIntosh. I always get them mixed up.
Shout out to Nathan McIntosh as well, wherever you're doing.
Ronald McIntosh, because he is incredible.
Yep.
When he just starts talking in the round and he's doing the commentary, you forget that people can't see it. So he's having to actually describe physically what's going on all of the time. So huge props to him for that. And then after I get brought in to talk a bit with Steve, and we chat a little bit about it, and then he's like wound up again and he goes.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot about all different things. Commentary is an area I would like to go into. Potentially, I'd quite like to maybe go into a bit of promotion. I might like to do a show.
Nice.
That's
don't do it is my advice.
Well, it
management, yes. Promotion, don't do it.
Pick Steve's brains on that. But I don't know. I just think it might be something interesting, maybe. But who knows where I end up? But commentaries, yes.
And that's probably what you'll see in the future as well. More female promoters. We've got Susanna Schofield at the moment, who's probably the only female promoter in the country.
Apart from Olivia.
Apart from Olivia, of course. Apart from Olivia, there's not many in terms of that's the two. Is that the only two in the country?
I think it is.
Yeah, definitely.
There used to be...
That's something we haven't talked about, Steve. So you've been a forefront of the female boxing with Olivia for... Olivia's been a promoter
Olivia done her first show in 2012.
Wow.
Olivia's been promoting for 10 years.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
So she was at the time the forefront of doing... She's done lots of interviews, didn't she? She's done TV, radio. So she was the first female promoter, and then... We went in to try and see... I'm trying to think who was my first female boxer, but it goes back a long... We had a female boxer.
And promoters, we've got more... Amy?
Amy. Oh, Amy as well. Amy's promoting now.
We've got more. We've got the lion's share of the female promoters.
Two female.
Yeah.
But I do think, is that something you think you'll see in the future? More female. We don't push that. Sorry, we don't push that enough.
I
No,
don't know why we don't.
You should.
Shouldn't we?
You really, really
We
should.
Crazy.
make more of a. Do you think? Sorry. Do we think that will be more in the future? More female promoters?
Yeah, I think as we get more women involved in the sport and the fact that they can actually compete
Yep.
now, and it's actually a thing. Women's boxing is now a thing.
Sure.
I can say that. So it's kind of like you're going to have more women coming into it, more people want to get involved. And the thing is, the old adage is boxing never really leaves you. It's something that once you get involved in it, you're never going to get rid of it. It's something that you've always got an itch to be involved, to be at shows, to do something, to be involved in it in some way or other, whether it becomes a trainer or a manager, a promoter or something like that. So I do think we'll see more women getting involved in these roles, and it'll be exciting, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be something to watch out for the future. Right, we're going to just go to the questions. So we threw it out onto Boxing Twitter before you came, just let people know that you was coming on. So we asked the public to give us some questions, some interesting questions, some funny ones as well.
Yep.
So we'll start with the first one. This is from Lee. He's actually sent 3 questions in. What split does Hannah give to boxing her classical music? So many people know you obviously into classical music.
Yeah.
How much of your time is divided between boxing and classical music?
So when I first started boxing, I was finishing off my masters at the Royal Academy of Music in London. For anyone that doesn't know, I play the bassoon. It's like the biggest woodwind instrument. Looks a bit like a didgeridoo. That makes it a bit more simple. But it's an orchestral instrument. When I first started out, I was doing a lot of freelance work with orchestras and traveling around with that. I have a wind quintet. Now, fast forward however many years, 7 years, I do a lot of work with my quintet. So we do a lot of outreach work. I work with a company called Live Music Now, and we go into care homes to work with people living with Alzheimer's and dementia. And we also go into SEN schools. And they're all interactive concerts. So it's like instant feedback. They're very quick to tell you they don't like it.
Sure.
Or if they do like it. But for me, seeing how music affects people's lives is probably the most rewarding part. So when I'm not in camp, I'm doing some of that because it's fun, but I would probably say at the moment we're looking like an 80-20 split.
80 boxing-wise?
Boxing-wise,
okay,
yeah.
so in camp, 80-20. Other than that, a bit more boxing when they're out of camp.
Yeah.
Lee, this isn't a question. This is more of a statement and a compliment to you. Lee said, does speaking in a public forum come naturally as it was for you at the New Age Boxing live show? He says you were brilliant. You made a huge impression on him. That night you raised his awareness of women boxing more than anything else at the time. That's incredible feedback.
That's a really nice thing to say. Thank you so much. So, fun fact about myself, I used to suffer really badly from performance anxiety. So I used to get so nervous about performing, but also speaking in front of people that I would just not be able to talk. I'd get like the shakes and get really sweaty palms and stuff. And I've performed before and run off stage and thrown up. So I had to do a lot of work with I did some hypnotherapy and stuff like that. But if you told me fast forward 10 years that I would be doing podcasts, I would be doing stuff with the camera, commentary, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
I would have thought you're nuts. All of you are crazy because that's not something that I would ever do. But it's just something I've really worked at, and thankfully I'm starting to enjoy it now. And it's something I would say to all young fighters getting involved in boxing. Learn how to speak in front of a camera.
Absolutely.
Because it can help your whole everything about your business grow and get people to know a little bit about you. And when the public know a bit about you, then they can get on board with you and your journey. So It's important.
Yeah, no, to go that far with the performance anxiety, you've done amazing to get that far. This is an interesting question. I'll ask it. I won't think. Has Anna ever fought against anyone who you thought was on PEDs? Now, if you answer yes, I'm not going to ask you who. But have you fought anyone who you thought was?
No, as far as I know, I haven't. Obviously, I'm, on the UCAD testing. Like I'm on actually the WBC 365 day a year testing program, which all people in the top 10 should be on, in all of the weight classes and on the male and female side. So I'm constantly tested, and also obviously all the big fights we have testing with UCAD as well. So UCAD and VADA in different situations. So every opponent I've had has passed. So as far as I know, nobody has been.
Okay, well, we won't go any deeper into that rabbit hole because that's a podcast on its own. A question from Martin of New Age Boxing. He's asked 3 questions, actually. Number 1 is, what order would Hannah rank her 3 toughest opponents?
Ooh, okay, good question. So I would probably say I put Carissa at the top. I put Savannah second. And the third one would probably have to be... Probably Alicia Napoleon.
Okay.
When I fought over in New York, it was my first time fighting abroad. It was actually my first time in America. That was an experience. But yeah, no, I was fighting up at super middleweight, which wasn't really my natural weight class at all. Just took the opportunity.
Sure.
But she's got a great style, and that was a hard night's work, but it was a great fight. It was actually dubbed in the press the best fight you never saw because Fox Sports turned off the TV.
Oh.
Yeah, we never got. It was meant to. Well, all the other guys' fights were shown on the TV, but because it was a chicks' fight, even though we were the world title fight, it was turned off.
Wow. Well, hopefully that changes in the future and that doesn't happen. Again, so that's the 3 for that, Martin. If you could only pick boxing on music, what would it be? I think you kind of answered it, but we're kind of...
That is an impossible question to answer. I can't give an answer to that because music is my very first passion. I've been involved in music since a child, sitting on my mum's knee at the piano. It's my first love. It will always will be, and I can have music right through until whatever age.
Yeah.
Whereas with boxing, it is a finite career.
Sure.
But I will want to be involved in boxing right through to whatever age. So I can't answer that question.
And what skills from music? This is a really good question. What skills from music have you found transferable into boxing?
So a lot of the visualization techniques that I use to prepare for concerts and big events, I use that for boxing as well. I think that it's, when I visualized, you visualize so many different outcomes, all the different things that could happen, and you do the practice, the walkout, you do the being in the ring, you do everything. So that is really important, like the mental training side of things. So those things have gone over quite naturally. Rhythm goes between both quite easily, and actually knowing how to perform under the lights, and when the lights come on, it's the same as when you're in orchestra and the red button goes on and it's live. It's just, there's no chance to do it again. It's live. And that feeling is the same feeling I get when it's fight night.
Okay, so there's definitely more skills come across there than I thought. What about you, Stephen? Anything come across from your music career that you've pulled into boxing? And the last question from Craig Scott, bit of a leading question maybe. Who's your favourite Strawberry Blonde writer?
Oh, obviously.
Yeah.
Mr.
Scott. Right, I think that wraps it up for questions. Hannah, thank you very much for coming down all the way. You travelled down to us, so appreciate you coming down. We wish you every success for the new year and the titles you pick up. Steve, we back next week?
We're back next week
to review what happened in the small hall.
We'll talk a bit about Brad Paul's next thing next week. So.
Yeah, we should have a few things to announce.
Quite a few things to announce.
Should have a few things to announce next week. So, thank you for all for joining us. Like I say, catch us next week. Please do like, subscribe, follow, share your friends, tell your nan, all the normal things. And we look forward to catching up with you next week. Thank you very much.